Hello, I'm Aidan Fitzgerald. I'm with my wife Ashling. We own Cobajay Stables. We pre-train and break and buy and sell pointers. So I'm originally from a place called Askeaton in County Limerick. I'm one of 5 children. Um, there's myself, my brother Trevor, my brother Barry, Emma, she's a nurse, and then my youngest brother Markham. So my mum and dad then are still alive, thank God, Marky and Elsie. We grew up on a farm in Limerick. There was every kind of an animal. We had cows, cattle, pigs, a couple of donkeys, loads of chickens, geese used to chase us around. They had to go after a while. So that we grew up with a great childhood. We started off riding a few donkeys at home. That's how we got going first. Myself and my brother Trevor, and Barry was a bit young that time, but we got going on the donkeys, and sure, we had a great childhood, to be honest with you. My mother wasn't able to drive, so we didn't go very far. My father was always working, so we didn't get to go far, so we were always at home. We'd be out in the dark till all hours of the night, but we'd great crack. My cousin Jennifer was getting married, and then our cousin Davy and Maggie, Davy trains in Limerick. He had to come home from the wedding to feed the horses, say. So after the meal, he shot home, and we were invited to the afters. So myself and Trevor had to be in his place at 6:30 or 7 to get a lift up to the wedding. It was in the woodlands, and we got out, and we got there, and then he was feeding the horse, and he wanted us to give him a hand feeding the horses and watering them at the time. And I remember the two of us were there, and we were watering away on the horses, and we were drawing water to the horses, and it was the first time that I ever came across a horse, to be honest with you. I was 14, I think, at 13 I'd say at the time. And he said to me, "Oh, water that lad." And I opened the door, and the horse went to come out, and he said, "Oh, make yourself big." And, to hunt him back a bit. And, jeez, I did that. And that moment, straight away, it felt powerful that, you could have that connection with a horse or something that big. So we tipped on and we watered away the horses. And then he said to us, when we were going up to the wedding, to the afters, he said, "Do you want money? You want a summer job?" So Trevor and I had no interest, none at all. So I said, "Jesus, I'll start tomorrow morning." So that's where it all started. I think I was 13 at the time. Davy and Maggie were just after getting married, and they were only back from their honeymoon. And I started there then, and he taught me how to ride very quick, to be honest with you. Plenty of falls. He was tough, but Jesus, he taught me everything, to be honest with you. To this day, there's still things that I do that he did. He was a savage horseman. And Maggie was very nice. They were very good to me. They were like, they were very good to me when we were young. When you're young in that age, you're influenced an awful lot by someone that's older than you, and I looked up to him. So, no, he taught me everything at the start, and we got going then. And at the time, Davy's training now. At the time, he wasn't. He was buying and selling half-bred horses to England. A man called Donald Barmel. An awful lot of them used to go to Donald. So the way it used to work was, I used to love it, to be honest with you. Davy could lip into the car, and we'd go off, and we could spend the whole afternoon looking at a couple of horses or a couple of cobs or ponies, looking at everything. And you wouldn't be long learning about, a model and step and big heads and, things that you shouldn't have as well. And what he used to do was kind of buy up a bunch, and we'd be riding them for maybe 6 weeks or a month or whatever it'd be, and Donald would pop over then. And just be sad then, because I was young, so you get attached to the couple of horses, and then the whole bunch could be gone tomorrow, and you'd have to get back into the car again and away with you then to go find the next bunch. So I loved it. I loved the time there with them, because they were great. And Davy, we used to break a lot of horses as well, and he was very good at that. He was a very good horseman. So we were very lucky. My mother and father. My father worked hard. In fairness, there was 5 of us. And my mother couldn't drive, but my father was always interested in horses. He was good friends with Eric McNamara and Tommy Kelly and Peter Dunn, and I remember them all when we were younger at home. John Long, and he always went racing. He used to bring us to the Pint of Pints, then the local Pint of Pints. Patrick Swell was a massive Pint of Pint at the time. That's where Limerick Racecourse is now. That used to be a Pint of Pint track. And Askeaton then, that was another big day out. We used to go there as well. I remember when we were younger, a good friend of mine, David Lyons, we used to go, we knew nothing about horses, but we used to go down, the fences were done, birch and the apron, but there was a gap in underneath the apron of the fence. And there was no fence stewards at the time. We used to go down and we used to sneak in underneath the fence. And the noise, stupid thing to do, but the noise of the horses going out across the fence, and then we'd sneak out and back up. And the point of points were different then. There was hurdy-gurdies everywhere. There was merry-go-rounds and you'd roulette wheels, and again you'd loads of characters, and it was a massive day out in the pub afterwards. Yeah, but they were great times. My father loved horses, and I think he was delighted I got into the horses, and he's very proud of Barry there now as well. Barry's doing well, training. He's over in Loughlin Bridge, he's not far away. So I know my mother and father were big influences. My mother, she had a hard job. There was 5 of us, and we were all nearly the one age, and 4 boys, 4 bold young lads. But I'd hope that they're proud of us now, to be honest with you. My father, he got a mare out of Eric McNamara's. Brunswick Maid was her name. And she'd ran on the flat. So you can imagine, I was trying to ride her slow and that wasn't working. So there was a friend of the family's, Peter Dundon. And he came over one evening and he showed us a field we had, and he said, right, this field, you need to go around here 4 and 4 set. So I started trying to go around 4 and 4 slow. He said, go slow. So I couldn't, and she used to bolt every single day. Go in the gate, she'd be gone. So I came up with this theory then that if I dropped my hands in her go as hard as she could for about 3 laps, then I was able to do my 4 and 4. No problem then, because she was wrecked tired. So he came over one evening anyway, and he said to me, well, how are you getting on with the 4 and 4? I said, Jesus, grand, yeah. So he came over and he watched me anyway. Sure, he went mad. He said, you couldn't do it this way. So that was kind of the first introduction to racehorses, going fast. And then Davy was involved in a point mare, I think, and she came back not much good, but he was going to try and train her for a point. So between the 2 mares, I enjoyed going quicker then and got the taste for it all then. And that's the following summer I went over to Donald Barnwell for the summer for a couple of months, and I loved that as well. But then I was 14 I think. I wanted to leave school and the mother wouldn't let me. So she said, you have to do the junior cert at the time. So started going up to Mike's then. Dad used to be working on Saturdays, so he couldn't drop me up. So I used to have to go up on a Friday evening. So just the house at the time, there was a 3-bedroom house and there was 12 lads in it. So there was 4 lads in each room. So there was no bed then. So in fairness, there's a couple of lads, these are my great friends. Straight away, there was a couple of lads that took me under their wing. So I was only a young lad, just turned 15. Robbie Burns, Galway, Shane Broderick, Leo Temple, John Cullen. But what the boys used to do, and Friday actually, Robert Cooper, Friday and Galway, everyone had a nickname at the time there. Everyone had a nickname. It was just the thing that was done. In fairness to them, I was the new lad coming up, so the first night I had to sleep on the floor, but then the next, after one weekend, I wasn't too bad. So the 2 boys used to pull their bed together, and the 3 of us used to sleep in the one bed. So that was, but when you're that age again, you're young, and geez, all them things are okay, and it's great crack, but they were great lads. They'd always look after young lads, and they were great. But that was Mike's then, and we started off there. Geez, and I loved it from the minute I went up there. Geez, I loved the racehorses, and all I wanted to be then was a jockey. And now today I realise it now, but at the time I didn't. I only had a year or 2 of experience in riding, and sure, it takes a lot of time to become good enough to ride in races. So I was always in a bit of a hurry to try and get on and ride in races. But then I started looking after, I was very lucky, I started looking after Dorn's Pride. Actually, he just after winning his point, and I got him straight away. In Mike's, the way it was everyone had 6 or 7 horses to look after, and I was in the front line. You'd Nancy, and then you'd me, and I had my 6, and Dorn's Pride was one of them. And sure, we great times with Dorn's Pride. He was super horse altogether. But I had a camaraderie in Horrigan's with some crack. There was some lads there, Shane Broderick, John Cullen, Leo, Friday, Galway. And Dave Watchman was actually head man at the time there when I was there as well. And there was loads of other lads. David Casey was there, Calvin McCormack, Brian Moran. There was so many lads that were able to ride. I'd say Horrigan had 100 horses, and I'd say most of the lads there had licenses or were trying to get licenses. Dave O'Mara was there, Paul Maloney, Bobby McNally. I'm forgetting a few lads now, of course, don't you know, but just there was so many of us. It was great time. Sir Dorn's Pride was one of those very special horses. Chestnut Horse by Orchestra. I think Mike bought him and he sold him to Tom Dorn. And sure, I used to lead him up then, of course, when he won any of his races. And he used to have these great battles with Denoli. There was fierce rivalry at the time, Denoli and Dorn's Pride. And so my first time ever going to England was going with Dorn's Pride. We went in the lorry over the stairs hurdle. Shane was riding him, and sure, he won that. That was unbelievable. That was the best to this day, it's one of the best days I ever had in racing. I remember Shane Broderick riding him and coming into the parade ring. And the first thing he said to me, I said, well done. And we were all there. He said, geez, make sure I weigh in. Make sure and remind me to weigh in. It was the first thing he said. And, oh, geez, it was unreal. The crowds, geez, it was massive. It was real enjoyable. And it was my first time going to England, and it was great crack. But as time went on, then he went for the Gold Cup, and I was one of those great horses. Yeah, he was one of those great horses. Yeah, there was one time then, and geez, I don't know, had he started running over fences. We were doing evening stables anyway, and like normally in Mike's, everything was routine. They were fed at the same time, they were hay at the same time, and everyone had their horses, and everything was always immaculate and done. Geez, the one evening we were going feeding, and geez, Dorn's Pride was Pawn, Padjo. Every horse had a nickname as well, actually. All the people had nicknames and the horse had nicknames. So Padjo was Pawn, and Jesus, that wouldn't be, it wouldn't be normal at all. So we, Kay was there at the time, and she rang Mike, and Mike came down, and geez, he was rushed off straight away up to Kildare. I went with him. We went up, and he was rushed in, and he had to have surgery straight away, the colic. And geez, was some tough horse, because he got the colic, he had the emergency operation, and he had to be operated again the following morning. And then he came back. In fairness, he came back again. He raced, but he was some horse. Some horse, iron horse, yeah. So yeah, Mike was one of the biggest yards in the country at the time. He was just touched off for the champion trainer. Like, he'd some horse that time. There was Deep Ramble, and Tropical Lake was a good mare, and there was, what else was there? Ballygone Beauty was a good horse. The Ultra Flutter. There was loads and loads for William. There was loads of good horses. And Mike was always very hands-on then as well. He was always in the yard, always involved. Kay was very involved. She was kind of one of the head people. And Michael was champion amateur in England and then came home. So he was there, riding plenty. Paul was still in school. He was champion conditional. He was a very good rider too. And then you had Laura and they were all very good hands-on family. They all did their bit. And it was one of them places I enjoyed working. You worked hard. You did work hard. But it was a great spot, and I loved it anyway there. I loved my time there. So, yeah, then after a while, Mike said to me about getting my licence. And so I got my licence then, and I was very inexperienced, to be honest. I got some falls. Myself and John Cullen started off together, and Paul Maloney, we used to be getting falls every weekend. Myself and John Cullen used to be inside, and the helmets weren't as good, but we used to get concussed nearly every weekend. We'd ride in a pint. And so that was myself and Cullen, and we were, yeah, so we, then after a while, sure, we'd be trying too hard, and there was a horse one day, I'd say I'd ridden about, I'd only ridden about 40 or 50, but I'd no winner ridden. I'd 90 rides before I rode one winner, but at about, I'd say 40 or 50 rides anyway, and there was this horse going to finish fourth. Thought it was a great lad, should have pulled him up at the second last, and he flipped over down top me and smashed me pelvis. So anyway, I was out then. I had to go to hospital then straight away, and I was in hospital traction for 3 months. So I spent one full summer. I remember it was a heat, but it was an awful time. My leg was up. They put a pin through my knee to lift my leg, to hold my hip in place. So I was 3 full months. So went in and lay off in the bed. But geez, when you're in a hospital ward like that, you don't belong, realising there was people in car crashes and trampolines. Actually, there was an awful lot of people. At the time, trampolines were only after coming out, and there was no nets around them as much. Just was some amount of people hurt out of them as well. But I spent 3 months there anyway, and just was, John Thomas was one of the lads. John Thomas McNamara, God, could be good to him now. He used to come in to me, because he was up in Croom, actually just about a mile from where he lived. He used to come in and see me the whole time. And Shane Broderick used to always come in to see me. There was plenty of people who used to always call, but there were 3 long months now. And I remember then they said, they took off traction and said, you can sit up in the bed now and you can start. Don't put your feet in the ground because you'll fall over if you try to stand. So I thought straight away, no bother at all. The minute the nurse was gone, I was ready for home, sat up, put my 2 feet in the bed and fell straight onto the ground. So they come and lift me back in. So I didn't get out of bed for another couple of days, but it's amazing. Got out then and got going. And in fairness to Mike, he said to me, come back if you want, whenever you want, and you can ride in bumpers and leave the jumping for a bit anyway. So Mike said, come back, sure, and you can ride in bumpers and give you as many spins as I can in bumpers. Try and get you going that way. So in fairness, he did. So within the space of, I'd say, the next year, I kind of rode 7 winners, or 6 or 7 winners anyway, bumper winners for him. Saffron Run was my first winner in Tramore. Philip Fenton was Minter Rider. And at the time, it wasn't like you declare now or anything like that. It was a bit different. And we all heard it during the week that Philip Fenton was riding Saffron Run, so I was disappointed in that, because she was a good little mare. So Shane Broderick actually tipped me off and said, Philip Fenton is suspended on Friday, but Mike doesn't know, say nothing. So in fairness to Shane, we said nothing anyway and came down to the wire, and that morning I had the bag packed ready to go because I thought when Mike finds out that I'd be getting the call up. So anyway, sure enough, geez, Philip's fucking suspended, fuck's sake. So come on, you lep into the Jeep. So I went down to Tramore anyway, and Saffron Run, and she bolted in. So that was the start of it then. And my second winner was Ballygown Beauty. That was another one from Mike at the Listowel Festival. And he won a 2.5 mile bumper. He won it by a furlong. And then Saffron Run in the same week, it was a couple of months later, she won the winner's bumper. So my first year having the winner in Listowel, and I was champion amateur, and sure, I'd been going to Listowel since I was a young lad with my father. So that was brilliant. That was great times. But at the time, something we used to always have to do was again, Shane Broderick. It's amazing the way some lads would influence things you do. Shane used to always say to be ringing for rides. So we'd no mobiles at the time. So there's a phone box in a there across from the AIB bank, between Lena's and the AIB bank. And there was 2 phone boxes together. And sure, no one would use a phone box now. So we used to have a stack of coins. And I had a little book. Shane again told me to do all this. So I had a book. And at the time, like, I wouldn't have known. I'd have known Noel Mead, I'd have known Paddy Mullins, all the few big trainers. But after that, you wouldn't have known any of them. So what I used to do was ring everybody. And I'd write down, nice fella, ring again, don't ring, has a jockey, prick, don't ring. So I had everyone, my whole book had everyone in it. So I used to know the lads then to ring. And just there was lads, when I started off, in fairness to them, Jerry Lynch, Iggy Madden, there was a load of small trainers used to give me rides. They were great. And we got going that because Shane used to always say then, for all the coins you waste, get one spin and it'll pay for everything. So we did that for a long time. There used to be queues at the phone box, because at the time no one had a mobile and we were all using the phone box, and there'd be queues, so there'd be lads knocking on the window, come on, get out. And but actually they were great times, yeah, it was brilliant. I used to love it there, yeah. I was coming to the end of my time in Mike's, and I was racing one day in Leopardstown, and a friend of mine, JP McNamara, who went on to riding in England for Kim Bailey, and now he works for the Turf Club, and his sister Neva used to work in Horrigan's, was good friends with her as well. And I met JP one day in Leopardstown, and he used to work for Sean Tracy. And I said to him I was thinking of leaving Mike's, that I wanted to move on and try and do something else, or see how we get on. And JP said he was thinking of leaving Sean Tracy's. So I said, right, so maybe this will work. So he gave me Shawnee's number. So I rang Shawnee and I said that I have to work my couple of weeks in Mike's notice. So then anyway, I went back to Mike's the following morning, and it was still, in fairness, we came home and this was all over now, but I said to him that I was thinking of leaving. And he said, well, sure, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. And I moved on. It was a sad leaving there now, because I loved being there. I was there 6 years. But so then I went on to Shawnee's. Yeah, so then I worked my 2 weeks notice in Mike's, said my goodbyes and moved on. And at that stage I was 21, I didn't have a car. So James Cregan, who'd been neighbouring me at home, he brought me to the Point in Thurles. Got a lift from there then with JP up to Borris. I'll never forget, anyone that knows Borris, the street of Borris, at night time there's a rookery, crows, and in the evening time the crows, I remember driving down the street And it's real kind of, it's a nice village, but the crows, I remember thinking, Jesus Christ, what kind of a place is this? Like something you'd see on television. But JP and I went down, and there was a lady at the time, God, she was an unbelievable woman, Mrs. Breen. She had a house, and I'd say there was 7 or 8 of us staying there. Just the crack we had. So I went from Mike's now, you can imagine, 8 of us, or 9 or 10 or 12 sometimes, in a house ourselves, to this house. It was a B&B, and myself and another lad in a room, and there was carpets, and she used to cook the dinners, and Jesus, I was after landing on my feet. So Mrs. Breen moved in with Mrs. Breen, and Shane McCann was there, Mark Clifford, and there was loads of other lads, Paul Stacey. But we started then with Shawnee. But I was actually very lucky, and I've been very lucky with a lot of things. From the day I moved up to Borris, things always kind of worked out themselves. JP got me a ride. I couldn't go racing one. He was gone to Naas and was racing in Clonmel or something. There was some reason in it. And he got me a ride on a horse called Limestone Lad. And I was only in Shawnee's. Jeez, this is my first week, I'd say, in Shawnee's. So I rode Limestone Lad, and he finished 4th in the maiden hurdle. So that was grand. Then that weekend, Sheehy, John Thomas McNamara couldn't ride a horse for Dusty, and Dusty let me ride him, and he was a horse called Finna Express, and he won a pint. And he ran him in a bumper then about 2 or 3 weeks later, and he won the bumper. And the same week that he won the bumper, the same week Limestone Lad ran again and won a maiden hurdle. So within the 1 week, I was in Shawnee's about 3 weeks, and I rode a winner of a maiden hurdle and the bumper on the 1 week. So things really took off from there then. So then, in fairness to Shawnee and Jolene, it was a different yard then. Shawnee's was about 30 horses, I'd say, 6 of us working there. It was great. It was a great place to work. Shawnee, everything was individual. Every horse got lots of individual attention, and he did a lot of road work, and we could sneak into fields, and he was a very good trainer too. And Shawnee and Jolene organised me a car. It was €1,700. Was it pounds at the time? Probably pounds at the time. Little Mazda, small little yoke. And so I had to get the licence. Jolene wouldn't let me drive until I got the licence. So it was parked in Shawnee and Jolene's house for about 2 months, and I couldn't drive it. And we had Jerry Mealick, a friend of theirs, organised it. So that was kind of the start. And sure, in fairness, I think that summer in Shawnee's, or that year in Shawnee's, I think I had about 13 or 14 bumper winners. Shawnee was some man with the bumpers. Like, just there was horses there that won 3 and 4 bumpers. Celtic Warrior won 3, Berkeley Run. I think she's the only mare ever to win the Land Rover bumper. She won a bumper and then went on and won the Land Rover. Like, he used to point horses at bumpers, so it was actually a great place to be. We had great times there, yeah. At that time then, Shawnee didn't have any pointers, so it was actually, to be honest with you, between all the concussions and breaking my hip, and I broke my wrist and my collarbone when I was in Mike's, I got a lot of falls. I was actually happy not to be riding in the points. I was nearly happier to be sticking to the bumpers, because that time, I was doing well out of the bumpers with Shawnee. So, and you were getting plenty of outside rides, so I was fine. I was able to keep I was in Shawnee's 7 days a week working, and so then I stuck mostly to the bumpers. So we used to go racing then, myself and Peter Fahey, Kevin O'Ryan and Gordon, Ross Sullivan, Philip Fenton. Philip Fenton was another man that was a big influence on lots of things we did, and he was a very great rider, and great man for advice when we were riding. So many things that he was streets ahead of us all. He was very clever. But we used to always go racing together, and when you're going racing with good lads like that, you'd be learning stuff and you'd be enjoying. We used to have great crack on the road, loads of stories and loads of things, but no, we had great times, yeah. And in fairness then, when we were always going racing together like that, we used to always kind of share the ride. If I couldn't ride one, you'd try and get Peter on it, or vice versa. Like, Peter used to be in Jesse's, and I rode a couple of winners for Jesse, and Philip Fenton was always very good to if he couldn't ride something, like he was champion amateur, and in fairness, he was very good to me that way. He got me on, I rode a couple of winners for Nicky Henderson, and he was the one actually that got me on won the Land Rover bumper again on one that he was meant to ride, and he got me to riding it. And actually, I won the Land Rover 3 times, and 2 of the times were spares of Philip Fenton's. Newmill was for Tom O'Leary, he had to ride, I think it was Kick 'em for Edward O'Grady, and Nicky Henderson, then he couldn't ride again, and he got me to spin on that in the Land Rover. And when I won the Land Rover for Nicky, I ended up the following year winning the Grade 1 bumper in Punchestown on Royal Rosa for Nicky Henderson. So, you know, when you be hanging around with lads like that, they were always good to help you get your spins. And I rode a lot of winners for other lads. Then Pat Hughes, I won the GPT in Galway, the Connacht, the big amateur race. I won that twice for Pat Hughes. And there was plenty of winners like that, yeah. I was second every now and then. I'd have to ride over fences. So when Cheltenham come around, I used to always try and get a few rides in Cheltenham, and I used to say to myself, if I'm ever going to get hurt again, I might as well get hurt here. So I rode for Nick Henderson in the Kimura one year, and I finished second. That was near the end of my riding days that time, but that was one that got away. I mean, I'd love to have won that, because at least I might have been a bumper jockey, but if I rode a winner in Cheltenham over fences, I could always shove it up someone's, you know. But no, they were great days. Brilliant. I used to love it. Yeah. Sure. When you be younger, then you'd be watching. I just loved the way Jamie Osborne used to ride, and Richard Dunwoody. Norman Williamson was brilliant. They were kind of the boys at the time. Conor Dwyer was another lad I used to love watching riding. He was brilliant. Charlie Swan, very clever fella. And I actually rode a good few winners for Charlie, and he was another man, a bit like Philip Fenton. Loads of tricks of the trade. Like, I remember one day I rode something for him, and he finished second, and I came in, and I didn't take the blame, as it were. I was blaming everything else bar me. And he just said to me afterwards, he said, listen, when you come in and you finish second, take the blame. Just take the blame. It makes things easier. So then anyway, it's a bit of a story now. So I was riding one day for Paddy Mullins, and I remember Tom was nearly taken over, and I used to go in one day a week into Paddy's. And he was a great man too, a legend of a man. But I rode a filly, and she was beaten about 3 or 4 lengths in, I think it was Tralee in a bumper. Yeah, it was Tralee. And came in, and it was genuinely my fault. And I never before done this, but it actually proved to me about, like, you know, things. So I came in and I said, geez, I'm sorry, Mr. Mullins, I should have won. And, you know, that was grand, and it was my fault. She should have won. I know what to do the next day. I'll win her the next day. And sure enough, anyway, about 2 weeks later, she was in a bumper again, and I rang up for the ride. And I'd heard from a couple of lads in the yard that I wasn't going to get to riding it. So I said I'd ring up anyway. And when I rang up, he goes, I suppose you know what you did wrong, don't you? I said, geez, I do. And the next day that she ran in Wexford in the Phillies bumper. She won, I'd say she won 10 lengths. But it was just by not coming in and blaming other people and blaming other stuff that it got me back on her. Because, like, there was plenty of people at the time. Keith Mercer was there, and Kevin O'Ryan used to be riding a good bit for him at the time. So, you know, it pays to be honest with lads too, and rather than trying to sidestep things and blame this and blame that. You know, and you learn those things. But that was something that Charlie said to me, and you know, you want to be listening, all the young lads there, you have to be listening to older lads, because they know what they're talking about. But yeah, Charlie was a great tactician. Yeah, the ride started to dry up because your claim and my claim was gone, and Shawnee didn't have as many bumper horses. So I had in half of my head that we'd go to America. So Fahy was going to go, and I was going to go with him. And it was a couple of weeks after Galway, but I got a ride on Gamekeeper for Pat Hughes in the GPT, and he won the GPT. So then all of a sudden I thought it was jockey again. So I said to Fahy, you head on, I'm going to stay where I am for another while. So again, got going again a bit with rides. And when Shawnee was getting a bit quieter, I went down to Paul Nolan's 2 days a week, down to James and Paul. And they were flying. Did a great yard of horses, and all them good horses, Clune River and Cordy Natois and Colonel Rayburn, and there was mighty horses there too. And it was a great yard. John Cullen turned professional. He was riding all the horses, and it was myself and Tom Cloak and Alan Dobbs. Them were the amateurs together. And so we tipped away, and we shared the rides between us, and it was great times. Great times there, like Clune River winning the Galway Hurl, and it was great crack. And still now to this day, we're very good friends, and we all get on great. But at that time then, a good friend of mine in Kildare, Tom Waters, he's a car garage. He rode a winner for him in Sean Tracy's, and he was always on to me about buying a house. So that was grand. Didn't have much money, but at the time they were giving out mortgages fairly willy-nilly. So Tom organised, in fairness to him, he was very good to me. He organised the mortgage. So then we got the mortgage, but I wanted to get a bit more money for furniture and the bits and bobs. And he said, no, he said, just work a bit harder. Only borrow the bare bit. And then he said, work an hour harder to pay for the furniture. So that was grand. Anyway, we got the house in Bagnallstown, Beechwood Close. So myself and Ashling, then we got the house. So we genuinely hadn't a penny then to furnish it. So the plan was that I was going to move in, lads. But now all of a sudden we had a house and I had lads waiting to move in. Sean McDermott and Davy Condon and Owen Love, Owen Conlon, and a couple of other lads. And so, Jesus, how we're going to get the money. So then I was talking to a lad one night in the pub, and he came up with this idea that he was DJing. And he said, it's the easiest money you could ever earn. So I said, fuck, how is it easy money? He says, I'm telling you now, €250 a night. So came up to notion, and so I said to Ashling I was going DJing. So I didn't have the $3,000 to buy the gear, so I got a loan of $3,000 off John Cullen. So I got the gear, I think, about a week before Christmas. And so I had all the gear. John Cullen paid back after Christmas, because I did 10 nights and had all the gear, and I was able to pay back John Cullen. But within about a month, we had the furniture, with the whole house done. So I stayed DJing, actually. I was riding in Pint of Pints and bumpers on a Sunday, and then a Saturday night. So I used to do Friday night and Saturday night. And then if I wasn't riding on a Sunday, you could do Sunday afternoon. There was a pub in Gorge Bridge, actually. Tony Mullins and Tom Dempsey owned it. T&T's it was called. That's where I was DJing. So I earned a right few quid DJing for a year, and it furnished the house and it done all that. But that was the house. And so we moved in the lads. That was Beechwood Close, and there was always 4 lads. Some lads stayed there now. Jeez, there was some stories in that house too. But great crack. And I was actually at the time, then Ashling went working in the pub. I was DJing and Ashling was working in the pub. So she had a job in Mount Juliet. She used to be assistant manager in the leisure centre, and she started working the same when I'd be working in the pub. She was working in the pub. So that was how we furnished the house and got going that way anyway. But yeah, that was another stupid story. Myself and Shane McCann and John Cullen and a couple of other lads, Mark Clifford and Paul Stacey, we were all swimming in Clashganny one day, and there was a bunch of, you know the way I show young lads and young ones, there was a bunch of young ones, and I spotted Ashling anyway and took a shine to her. And our friend Orla Tracy, who would be a cousin of Tommy Tracy and a niece of Shawnee's, kind of knew her. Mark Clifford knew her and said, "Jeez, who's that girl?" and blah blah. And sure, that's how we met, yeah. And she'd no interest in horses, and now she'd know everything that goes on, but she wasn't from a horsey background at all. Her mum and dad didn't have anything to do with horses. So, and to be honest, I like it that way too. That, you know, when you come in the door, you leave the work stays outside the door, and that's the way I like it, to be honest, yeah. I was in Paul's 2 days a week, and an odd place then, like Mags Mullins's and Dick Dunhu's, and anywhere around it I could ride out. So I started going back to where I started, and I suppose buying and selling cobs. So I rented a yard in Borris off a nice man called Michael Kavanagh. He had a couple of stables, and so bought a couple of cobs and was hunted them a bit, and started hunted with the Carlow farmers and started turning over on them then. And at the time then as well, Paul and James were flying, and there was breakers and there was pre-trainers, and I kind of copped this and I said, "Geez, sure, I might get started that." So I rented Martin Tracy, who'd be a brother of Shawnee's and uncle of Jim's, or uncle of Tommy's and brother to Jim. I started renting his yard. So there was a lad then that was riding out in Paul Nolan's with me called Alan Kelly. So the two of us used to ride out in the mornings in Paul's, or ride out wherever we had to, and we go back then, and we'd 10 horses in Martin's, and there were breakers and pre-trainers, and sure, the two of us worked very hard there for a couple of years together. And so then that kind of grew. Started off with 10, and sure, all of a sudden then it was 12, and it was back in about 2002, and there was horses everywhere, there was syndicates everywhere. And so that yard wasn't big enough. Then we started renting Jerry O'Neill. He was a good trainer years ago. I think he trained Dimwit to win the Irish National, or owned it Dimwit, the Paddy Mullins training, but he owned it in. But so he had 30 stables there. So quick enough, we were able to fill them, and we got going there. We had a gallop, and we were breaking and pre-training. myself, Alan, and there was a couple of other lads, Shane. Richie Deegan actually came in as a young lad. He was only 13 or 14 at the time. God, he was always able to ride. He was a great little chap to ride. And myself and Alan, and there was plenty of people there. You know, we got going there then. The breeze ups were only kind of starting up at the time. I remember that, and I was good friends with Martin Donoghue then through, you know, buying and selling the cobs and selling them in Gorse Bridge, and he was telling me about the breeze up, and he said he'd give me 2 slots in the breeze up sale if you wanted to have. So I took a notion anyway, this was going to be easy money. So went up to the sales anyway and bought one little colt, I think it was €3,000. And then there was this filly for €1,800, and I couldn't believe this filly was so cheap. So someone had said to me, make sure and get him wind tested when you buy him. So I said, grand. So off of Ken Park Hill, and Ken Park Hill is a lovely man. I don't know, a lot of people will know him, but he's a lovely man, and he's got a real nice manner about him, but nearly like he's smirking all the time. He looks like he's... So anyway, this filly for £1,800, I went down. Of course, I didn't listen to the circus, I was rushing in. So next when I went down, I said, oh, I bought her and I want to get her wind tested. He looked at me and he said, geez, you know she's wrong of her wind. She was read out to be wrong of her wind. So, Jesus Christ, my 1,800 now is gone. So, that was grand. So, what could I say only? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, that's grand. So, I brought her off anyway. Brought her home. The colt was fine, in fairness to him. He breezed and went to the sales. But the filly, I was hoping coming home, I said, maybe she's not too bad in the morning. Well, when I lunged her the following morning, she was so bad. So, that was I think I sold her actually to him, and she, I don't know, for a couple of £100, and he must put a syndicate together or something anyway. But that was a lesson that I learned. A fella said it to me after I was telling him. He said, you can run in to buy him, but you have to stand still to sell him. So it was a lesson I learned. Never run in, and you have to listen to the certs. So thank God I learned that it was 1,800, not 18,000. But anyway, so then that was the 2, but I didn't go with 2. We went with 1, and I think he made 7,000 or 8,000. So it wasn't all lost. But I tried it then once more, and it wasn't for me, to be honest. It didn't work at all. So that was the end of the breeze up job. So then anyway, so we had a house in Bagnstown then, and we were renting in Jerry. So I was still riding out in Paul's 2 days a week, and the breaking and pre-training was going very well. We were getting very busy, and so we were coming between myself and Ashling. We were married now at this stage, and we said we were going to have to kind of, you know, buy a place or do something, because so what we did then was we bought here off Andy Murphy, local man. There's 12 acres. It was 2 fields, and we bought it and we got going then. Put in a yard, put in a barn with 32 stables and a gallop and a walker, and we didn't bother with the house for a while. So I was in Paul's at the time. We were buying here, and I was in Paul's, and I remember Barry O'Neill was just after starting work in Paul's, and I remember seeing Barry in Gorse Bridge jumping for Columbo, jumping ponies. Just he could jump 15 ponies in a day, but he was a gifted rider, gifted little chap. And I knew the day I was not riding as much, the claim was gone and it was coming to the end of my time, and I knew we were riding a piece of work on, then Barry O'Neill was beside me, and I said, this is it now, I'm nearly done. So I said it to Paul that I was going to finish up, and he said, sure, finish up in a winner. You know, don't just retire, finish up in a winner. And I said, okay, grand. So sure, he kept giving me a few rides, but Barry was coming on. He was a 7-pound claimer, and he was a very good little rider. So I remember one evening we were laying blocks, building the 7 stables on the bottom, and Paul said, this evening in Tramore, I was to ride in Tramore. Hip Bone was her name, and I went down and I rode her, and she won, and that was the end of the riding then. But I had a great career, and maybe I did have a good career, but I loved it. I loved all the people I met, and I loved all the people I rode for. I rode for great people, and I made unbelievably great friends. I loved when I was riding. I loved the time, and I suppose you'd have to ride in races to know what I'm on about. When you're in the weigh room, and when you're going racing in the car, and when you're riding a horse, and when you ride a winner, there's no feeling like it. Like the weigh room is like a family. You have your couple of friends in the weigh room, going racing together. Yeah, but when I finished up, like, thank God, so a lot of lads get hurt and then they have to retire. I feel sorry for those lads, to be honest, because, you know, but for me, I'd enough for riding. When I wanted to give up, I was here and I'd moved on to another. I don't miss race riding, no. I loved when I was doing it, but I don't miss it now, no. And I enjoyed every day of it, but I don't miss it. With that then, we started building here. And there was a couple of horses then, we started trying to buy and sell pointers. So I came up with a notion that I got 3 lads and myself, Jerry O'Neill from Kildare, Jason Byrne, and a friend of mine, Robert Breen from Borris, who would have been Mrs. Breen's son. So I came up with a tiered plan to the boys that we were going to put 40 grand together, 10 grand a man, and we were going to buy 2 horses. So this was my first big venture. So anyway, went up, and lads would be on about buying models more than pedigrees and all these things, but we bought 2 great models with no pedigrees. And I mean, a bit like the black mare, when the black filly that made the noise, we brought him home, and I knew within, I'd say, 2 weeks of him riding that we were in trouble with our 2 horses. So that was our first big venture, and that didn't work. They were by Saffron and Catub. 2 fine big horses with good steps. I ended up selling both of them as riding horses actually, because their steps were so good. But that was the first big venture. But then we got going. We built up. Alan Kelly was here with me the whole time, and Derek and Richie Deegan and Rhea, and there was plenty of lads coming and going as well. So we started trying to run a few horses in Pine of Pines then. So then there was a man at the time from Kildare called Niall Donoghue. He sent us a filly by Even Top called Even Better. She won first time out then for us, Andrew Duff rode her. And then we were just training on the hill, and we used to be using Colin Bowe's gallop. And I was going down, and I remember thinking, you see Colin Bowe's horses, they were going up the hill twice, and they come off the gallop, and they weren't blowing at all. And ours were going up, and they were blowing their heads off for 20 minutes after just hacking up twice. So we didn't have them fit enough at all. So I decided then I needed to find a hill or put in a hill gallop. But so there was another friend again, Paul Hatton, gave us a field to use, and we put in a gallop on that. So we'd done a 25-year lease on the field, and we put in a hill gallop on it. So then between the hill and the circle, that's kind of what we do, the training part of it. And we mixed the 2. Then between the hill and the circle, we got going there doing that, and Richard Deegan then got his licence. He was 16 or 17, and he rode his first winner, and he got going. He was riding most of the horses then after a while. We were doing an awful lot of breaking for a lot of people, and pre-training as well. And then we decided we'd have a few pointers. So there was one man then, Paddy Byrne, who's no longer with us now, had 2 fillies with me. And the 2 fillies, both were no good. And so one day then, I was dropping home one of the fillies, and I went into a field, and there was a horse. He wanted me to take a half share on him to train. A fine horse with a Midland pedigree, and he was after kind of being unlucky with the 2 horses, but he was good about it, and I said I'd take on the horse. And if it was now, you probably wouldn't, but it just amazing the way things work out and things are lucky. So with that anyway, took on the horse and ran him, got him fit. And I remember Richard Deegan rode him in Moira, and finished second to a big fine Western horse of Andrew Latta's. So we went. I thought to myself then, at least now we're going to get 30,000, and I'll get paid for what I'd done. He was a 5-year-old at this stage, so that was fine. So went on to the sale, and Kavanagh's Corner was the name of the horse. It's a pub actually in the corner where you turn out from here in Borris. And the horse that beat us went in and made 140,000. So I was thinking, she'd only beat us a half a length. So I was thinking things were going to be a little bit different. So with that, and our lad went in and made 70,000. So that was a great day for Paddy and for myself and Ashling, because we were, at the time, we were building up the place, and money was very, very tight. And that touch was nearly more important than any other touch that ever came out of a horse, because it came at the right time, and it kind of gave you a bit of confidence then that we could do more. And so then we started buying and selling a few more. But then another lucky encounter I had, a man came into the yard. He was part of the Supreme Racing Syndicate that's in Willys. He wanted a part of Peak Sue and a couple of other horses. But he came to the yard with the syndicate to have a chat and look at horses in the McDonagh. So I explained, the syndicate was there and we explained what we do. And geez, Enda took my number and said, can I give you a ring later on? And I said, geez, of course you can. So he said he'd like to get involved in a few horses with me. So it's amazing, like, again, people you meet and the way things can just go right. From the minute we started together buying and selling horses, number one, we had luck. And number two, there was never between us, we're best of friends now, there was never a crossword between us. And we always got on. And one thing that he has that I lack a bit of, confidence. He'd always be about back your opinion. If you have an opinion on something, be strong on it. And he's very good in that sense, because I'd be always, with my first couple of encounters, I didn't have much confidence in buying and selling, to be honest with you. But he gave me confidence then. So then we started buying, for some reason we started buying mares. I think at the time, the reason we started buying mares was that if you were to give 10,000, just saying 10,000 for a filly, you have a chance of buying a filly out of a winner and a sister to a couple of winners to give you a chance. Whereas, even the proof of the two geldings, you buy a fine big gelding, cost you 20,000 with no pedigree. So we were able to buy into a nice filly with a bit of a pedigree at a bit of value. So there was a couple of fillies we bought. Jesus, Queen's Cave was a very, very good mare. She went to David Pipe. She was unlucky. She won her Pint in Drummahan. She won the 4-year-old maiden in Drummahan. Queen's Brook, Magical Zoe, Nada to Prada. Magical Zoe was second in Cheltenham. Queen's Brook was second in Cheltenham. Pint of Pints. Yeah, no, I think they're in a very good place. Like, every day you pick up the paper, every day there's Pint of Pinter. And now the fact that lads are giving more money for Pint of Pinters, or for stores, you have a better horse in the parade ring in a Pint of Pint. So you have a better horse graduating out of the Pint of Pints. Before, it was a lot of August sale horses or, lesser horses, Pint of Pinting. But now, nearly the best horses out of the store sales are going Pint of Pinting. And the men that are handling them are proper horsemen. Like, I know from my own experience here in the yard, people might have the opinion that, you're doing this and you're doing that. If you do a furlong too much with a young horse, he'll leave tonight, and if he leaves tonight, he'll leave tomorrow night, and then all of a sudden he's going to be sick in a week. So, he'll leave his food. So the lads that are doing these 4-year-old maids, I see myself here with the lads, like, from the minute we start with them, yeah, you're trying to get to March, but you can't make him. You can't gallop a horse more to get him there. That doesn't work. Like, you have to, week on week, bit by bit. Like, today now, it's the middle of January now. In France right now, the 2-year-olds have just turned 3, and they're going to be racing over hurdles as 3-year-olds. Like, for me, the earlier a horse starts doing a little bit of something, the less likely he is to get hurt. When you get a horse in out of the field as a 4-year-old, never touched, and we've done it, we've had horses like that, they take so long. It's actually, I think it's counterproductive. It's a bit like kids learning how to ski. You'll teach a young kid, our own kids, we've been skiing one year and they were 4 and 5. So they were skiing within 2 hours. Whereas a couple of adults came and they never got going for the whole week. So when they're younger, if you start at a horse younger, you can teach them, but it has to be done right. And it has to be done right. But they won't get to run if it's not done right anyway. So I think Pint of Pints are in a good place. I have no objections to horses starting earlier. I personally don't think it's an issue at all. French horse and an Irish horse, I don't buy into all that. I think it's the French system is better than the Irish system. I'd be shot now for saying this, but in France, like, I was over there this summer with 2 good friends, Len and Angus, and David Lyons, actually a friend of mine, came as well. We spent 2 weeks going around France, and they've been broken as yearlings, doing a small bit, let out, broken and riding, get a bit of sore girt in and out, and end up 6 weeks out and 6 weeks in, and then they do a good bit again as 2-year-olds. Nothing too drastic or whatever, maybe jumping, and there's an awful lot of pre-training yards over in France. And even with Willie and Jackie with their horses, like, a lot of the horses come from France to us to spend 6 weeks here acclimatising, then they go out. And even with Jackie's homebred horses, they break them as 2-year-olds, give them 6 weeks. I think myself that it's the systems are wrong. We're buying them in July and June, and it is hard to get them there in March, because if you do an inch too much, they're going to go backwards. So you have to stop anyway. So I don't know how it can be done, but in France, I think they have it right. They're able to run at their prime under 3. Is the French pedigrees different to Irish pedigrees? I don't know. I don't think so. For me, a horse is a horse. Thoroughbred horse is a thoroughbred horse. So I think the systems are, the French system is better than the Irish system. The characters are kind of, everyone is a bit, what would you say, maybe level or something. Like Ruby Welch there is very good. He criticises, he has his own personality, he's very true to what he is. I just think, years ago I remember like there was characters, like even when you were watching Channel 4, BBC, John Frankham and the lads, they all had good opinions. I think everyone now is just a bit, don't upset anyone, keep everything right, keep everything level. Maybe characters are going out of the job a little bit. That's maybe just one little thing. A lot of people ask me about it, actually, the word Cobajay. So it's a long story. My grandfather used to always call horses Cobajays. So I don't know, is it something to do with cobs, or I don't know what it was, but when we were younger, Davy, my cousin, was a jockey. He used to ride for Mike Horrigan, and he used to always follow in the race and then follow Davy when he was riding. And I remember when I started working for Davy, my grandfather was dying, and I would have looked up to Davy. And one evening we lived with my grandmother and my grandfather. We lived in the same house, and Davy came in to say goodbye to my grandfather, and I saw him running out and crying. So Jesus, I knew then it was serious. So because Davy would have always been strong, like, so to see him crying was, So I went in and what he said to me was, he was going to die that evening actually, and he said to me, stick at the Cobajays, boy, stick at the Cobajays. So that's kind of the word. I don't know what it really means, but he always called horses that. So that's what I called the yard, and when we bought it, we called it Cobajay Stables, so that's where the name stems from. And at the moment, like I said, there's sort of 52 horses in, and it'd be split between pointers and pre-trainers, and we'd have kind of 10 to 12 people here the whole time working. Ashling, when we had the girls, Ashling was working full-time in Mount Juliet in the leisure centre. She was the assistant manager there, and between school and the office, and there's a lot of work in it all, she gave up the job and she came working here with us. So we work together now. She's in the office the whole time, does all that side of things. And so she's, school runs and the office, so she's busy doing that, and then sure we're busy in the yard. But yeah, best bit of advice, I suppose one thing that mightn't be for everyone, but it was for me anyway, profit beats wages. So that's something that I do agree with, to be honest with you. And I suppose be nice to people too, and tell the truth. I don't know, listen to older people that know what they're talking about. We all run around when we're younger thinking we know everything. To be honest, we know fuck all, really, do we? Only just older people have it all done, and they have more experience than us, so I'd be listening to the lads that know what they're talking about. Geez, between myself and Ashling, sure, we love going off with the kids the weekends and doing stuff. I'd drag them to the car boot sale on the weekend and pitch and putt with the kids. I go fishing a lot of Fridays during the summer with Tommy Tracy. I love doing that. And go to bingo on odd Monday night, but not much else, to be honest with you. It's all work, really, to be honest with you. Sure, to stay healthy and well, I suppose, and sure, God, wouldn't you love to buy, you'd love to have you'd love to sell a Cheltenham winner. You'd love to sell good horses, sure. We all want to be associated with good horses, and I'd love to sell a Cheltenham winner. That's the next goal, I suppose, and sure, to stay going in business, really,